Yo, here we go. Another show. Another great showing. Welcome to Beyond the Veil, an unusual podcast. I'm your host, Jay Drews of the Blue Pie House. Your co-host with the most, son of the sun, Black Sun Shaman, also known as Manu Ray L. Welcome. We're back again. An unusual podcast. What's happening, my brother?
Man, all is well with me and my soul and my light body and my physical body. All is well.
You mentioned the light body. That sounds like some subject matter that we ought to be covering today, at least in parts. This episode is brought to you by it's very soon you'll be hearing those words often. But yeah, the Kaballah, Cabals, the power behind the curtain, the reset, the reconstruction, and the resurrection of the real estates. Heavy mental, heavy spiritual. Remove those heavy metals. We're going to talk about a little bit of Yeah. So I defer to my esoteric expert partner in building and rebuilding the mind, body, soul, and spirits of the people. So, man, we were talking the other day, man. We got into a great build, right?
Oh, fire build. Yes, it was.
Hey, so let's just pick up kind of sort of not where we left off, but somewhere close to where we began in the discussion. You have some very interesting insights, some very insightful, revelatory understanding. And I would like for you to get into that to an extent, whatever you're comfortable digging up, so to speak. And we'll just
all right. We can talk about the living language. They call it I don't know if everyone's heard of the Kaballah. They spell it with a K, they spell it with a Q, they spell it all types of ways, but Kaballah is a living language. The Kaballah, the Zohar, and the Kaballah, the Zohar, and the Gramatra all work together in the Jewish explanation for the Kaballah, but the Kaballah is a living language. So my insight on it is this: the numbers that they correspond to different parts of the body. We'll get down to it later on, but what I know of it so far is the numbers correspond to different parts of your makeup as a being. And then it's interesting that they say Kaballah, and you got Ka and Ba in there, which are two parts of your makeup. When you get into reading the Zohar, and when you get into working with the Gramatra is a number system, but the Zohar is an explanation of how those numbers work together. And ultimately, it's a system of energy for the physical body that, if you know, not just the physical body, but the spiritual body and the light body as well, if you know how to speak that language, then that language is supposedly responsible for creation. So much so that the Jewish use that language to create what they call golem. And golem is a partially living being that they spoke the breath of life into using linguistic formulas, or Kabbalist linguistic formulas. So it's a living language. That's what Kaballah is. That's my little insight right there.
Wait. So, okay, you went all the way to second base.
Still, that was like a little.
Let's catch the listening and viewing audience up a little. So you got into Golem, right? Which is definitely somewhere this conversation should go. and doesn't go in most on most platforms. But um, let's get into a little bit about the different types of Kaballah or forms of speech
Okay.
within the language, and then let's get into, for the audience, what's the difference between a living language and a dead language, which is often referred to as liturgy, right? Liturgical
Mm-hmm.
speech, or liturgical speech, or what do you call it? Not phonics, reading, the reading of the literary. So we have three different types, they say, of Kaballah, but this is just from Wikipedia, and this is just something as a visual reference.
Mm-hmm.
Take it seriously, take it lightly, completely up to the observer. But theoretical, meditative, and practical Kaballah. The study of Kabbalah is divided into three basic areas: the theoretical, the meditative, and the practical. The theoretical deals with the form of the mysteries or mysticism, teaching the structure of the angelic domains as well as of the Sephiroth. That's one of the things I want you to go in on, or the divine emanations. So, what is a Sephiroth? Is based on your understanding or understanding?
Based on my understanding, it's a sphere of consciousness.
Hmm.
Um, the best way I can relate it, if I'm relating it to the physical temple of God, your body is the temple of the true and living God. The unadulterated word of God is written on the tablet of your heart. If I'm taking it from that perspective, then the tree of life would be the different spheres of consciousness or light centers within your body, depending on which one you're at. If you're at the crown, they do have a Sephiroth for the crown. It's sitting at the top. I think it starts with a K or something along those lines. But these are the different power points or power centers that can be located on your body. If you take a picture of a human and put the Sephiroth on top of it, then it gives you an idea of the radius of that operation, of that particular sphere of consciousness. What I'm saying is, so if you place it on top and the circle is at your head, then that is a representation of your crown, and that is a representation of what happens on the mental plane of existence. And then for each Sephiroth, they have a center, and these centers have roadways between them, just like your body has neural pathways between and all of the parts of your body and blood pathways. Well, the tree of life has pathways between them, and depending on which pathway you take, you get a different result each time.
Hmm. Gotcha. So, what I'm familiar with also is, okay, tree of life, what people refer to as such, or the flower of life. Within the tree of life system, the structure is depicted oftentimes with spheres or Sephiroth, and there's major Sephiroth, and then within the major or larger Sephiroth, there are the smaller, yet more detailed and significant Sephiroth. Uh, so the devil is in the details, no pun intended, within those understandings, because you could overlook something that appears minor that is actually something you can't skip
You
over, you can't
mm-hmm.
bypass in order to get the fullness of the wisdom that's being presented.
and and just to say, we're gonna get into the living language in a second, but just to say, these energetic systems have lessened in points as time has progressed. There used to be an extensive. You got right now. You got the chakra system, which has 7. If you go back further than that, you got 9, and then you got the tree of life that has the Sephiroth that has 12, right? 12 and a hidden, so 13, but 12. And then you go back further than that, and you get into the Nadi system, NADI. Then you go back further than that, and you get into your points chads. The points chads had hundreds of different locations that had thousands of different points in between them, and it's the most extensive and oldest representation of the power points on the body. But I was just saying that to say that to agree with what you were saying, they try to limit our understanding of the energetic system so that we cannot utilize it and all its potentials, because some of them are outside of their means of measurement or observation. So a person like that would be considered wild or out of control.
And why is that? That's very important.
Because they would not be operating within the common programs that are taught to people. They wouldn't be operating in the common phrases, common music, common programming. So operating outside of that would make them wild, or would make them in need of. A person would say, you need Jesus. You need to take your butt to school or something. You know what I mean? Because they would be operating outside of social norms.
Social norms. Okay, got you. So, in other words, maybe a wild Indian, an uncivilized
Definitely a wild.
tribe, or oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
and to the
I
extent,
skipped over to another aspect too soon, but it's also interconnected. It's just wild.
yeah, yeah. And I just want to say, you said wild Indian. Do you know they made it illegal for them to sing and dance till they was fit men? Men. They made it illegal for men in Native American tribes here in the United States. They made it illegal for them to dance publicly until they were 50 plus years old.
Hmm.
Kabbalah's living language. When you dance, you accumulate energy in the body. But okay.
Interestingly enough, there's a book within the Masoretic literature of uh, the teachings associated with Kabbalah, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the books within this grouping of literature, library, if you will, is called Sefer Yetzirah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that book I was introduced to, well, let's say about 20 years ago. Um, but I was told by the person that introduced me to even its name not to open it until I was at least 40 years of age, which really is reminiscent of studies that I've done that show that those who were initiated into, for example, the Egyptian mystery schools, as it's misnomered, into some of the other Babylonian, Greek mystery schools, you had to be 40 years of age and male before you were even allowed to enter into initiation to that.
That's reminiscent of Nation of Islam too. They say a person of not heavy uromelanin, a W person, may
Right.
not be a member of the organization until they practice for
50.
how many
Yeah.
years?
Islam 50
50.
years
Yeah.
before they would be called brother. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And their teachings. But interestingly, I pulled up what you were speaking on, the Nadi system, and this may not be the most accurate source. It is Wikipedia. I just want to give the audience, once again, a visual reference point, a starting point, if you will. I mean, I would always refer you to research libraries. If
Oh
there's a
yeah. Oh yeah.
university library near you, a seminary, especially if it's something on this level, I would recommend that you partner with them in your studies. But in the Hatha Yoga theory, as you refer to, nadis, NADIS, nadis carry prana, right? And we talk about this
Mm-hmm.
privately quite often. Life
Mm-hmm.
force energy in the physical body. The nadis are channels carrying air, water, nutrients, blood, and other bodily fluids around, and are similar to the arteries, veins, capillaries, bronchioles, nerves, lymph canals, and so on. So, of course, people with a divine connection to nature and the natural matrix of things would be have to be separated from actions that would get the flow of that moving about on such a energetic connective level, right? That any and everything that would come in contact with the individual would become almost as if a part of the individual. The connection would be difficult to see. The separation of the connection, I should say, would be difficult to even find. It would be almost like seamless, endless exchange and flow of
like a turned on Neuralink.
Interesting comparison. Thank goodness there's no such thing. Just kidding.
It is. I put that on Elon. No.
Right. right. Absolutely. So we were talking about living language. So liturgical language, I'm just going to pull this up just for, once again, just this visual point of reference, not the end all be all.
Can I, while you do that, can I give them one last explanation of living language just to better clarify and bring it down to a simpler version?
Absolutely.
A living language is the accumulation of energy that your body produces out of its own mechanism. So your heart has energy production, your brain has energy production, your vocal cords have frequency and energy production capabilities, your breathing has energy production capabilities, and all of the points forementioned along your body carry and transfer this energy. And it can also be received from others and transmitted to others. And that's what a living language is. It's a communication, transference, and receptivity of energy based on your living physical Kaballah, or your body, your physical body, your spiritual body, and your light body. That's how you. So that's what it is. That's what a living language is. It's alive in that way.
All right. Awesome. So what do I have pulled up here? Oh, okay. Liturgical language. This is going to get very interesting.
The language of the dead. No.
Well, see, now this is where, okay, now when I did a incognito search, right, I got a totally different meaning. But that's neither here nor there. That's up to your interpretation as an audience as you come across this. But okay, liturgical language meaning a sacred language relating to a particular set of the words, music, and actions used in ceremonies. In some religious, especially Christianity. All right, so many Christian churches make a distinction between a sacred language, a liturgical language, and a vernacular language. The three most important languages in the early Christian era were Latin, Greek, and Syriac, which is a dialect of Aramaic. Is
like
Hebrew
the Etruscan
language? Well, you can't. The Etruscans, you would have to connect also with the Cretans, Minoans, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are all were all subcultures of a larger culture, seemingly.
But I only reason I mentioned that at this time, because the languages that were created by Romans and other individuals who we'll get to later on,
yeah, we definitely are
all
headed there.
came from a base of those pre-existing cultures. They stole it and remixed it.
Well, yeah, they would have no basis or foundation without those that you mentioned. Absolutely. So, okay, my bad. Where do we go? Okay, that's the wrong page, I think. Here we go. So, where did I leave off? Okay, Aramaic. Okay, spoken in ancient times in Palestine, Hebrew was supplanted by the Western dialect of Aramaic beginning about the 3rd century BCE. I call cap on that. The language
Yeah,
continued to be
you
used.
seen me look sideways. I'm like, wait a minute now.
I call
Like,
cap. The language, that's what I said. It's just a point of reference, folks. We are not believing
uh,
everything that we're reading, if very little of it. Take it with a grain of salt. The language, let's see, okay, let me back up. Supplanted by the Western dialect of Aramaic beginning about the 3rd century BCE, the language continued to be used as a liturgical and literary language, written language. However, it was revived, as spoken language in the 19th and 20th centuries and is the official language of Israel.
1946 Israel.
Hold my mule, Jesus. Okay. I'm gonna hold my mule. So, man, you know what? When you're dealing with an alleged liturgical language that is also called a living language, that roots don't seem to extend before, I would say at the latest, the 15th century. Right around the time where all these Masoretic concepts were introduced. Zohar, Book of Eden, um, Kaballah. I mean, even the co-opt. Yeah, let's go into this real quick. You decide. We won't try to tell you what is what. The ancient Egyptian concept of Ka and Ba. What is the difference between Ka and Ba? This is once again just a point of reference and not the end all be all of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Ba, or the personality, is one translation that a modern scholar or person has contributed. Ka, or the double or vital essence. Ib, or the heart. Shuyet, or the shadow. Right. So we hear people talking about the shadow self. Obviously,
The
they're
shadow
delving.
work.
Yeah, it's shadow word. They're delving. They're delving at best. In most instances, maybe a little more in best case scenario. But the Ba, or spiritual entity, was seen as human-headed bird. A human-headed bird. I just want y'all to focus on that. Hovering over the deceased or exiting the tomb in the hieroglyphics, and was the part of the soul that could travel between the worlds of the living and the dead.
For those who are born with a veil over your eyes, this is for you. For those who live in between worlds, this is for you. For the shaman who has been misdiagnosed as other things, that part is for you. That's part of your living language, and your ability to utilize that living language gives you the perceptive ability to tap in to different worlds as your energy rises and is reconstructed. I just want to tap out to you because I know that people don't know how to deal with the in-between world people, because they'll tell you stuff about yourself you didn't tell them, about your past you didn't tell them. They'll have feelings about things that were unspoken and undealt with. That does not make you crazy. That makes you have a greater perceptive ability than most, and potentially greater energetic storage capabilities than others.
Correct. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, my initial understanding, and I was trying to find something related to that because, when I was researching this, not that I stopped at that point, but when I was initially researching this concept years ago, the internet was dial up and not everybody could afford a computer, right? And even though we
Mm-hmm.
had one, my father predominantly needed it for business. So I did a lot of travel back and forth to the library, and I got books by actual academics, and so the Ka and the Ba was always representative to me. The Ka was the spirit body, and the Ba was the spirit soul, and so there was this connectivity between the two. And what was suggested was that man was a dichotomy, but it was confusing to me because I was in a Christian church, a Protestant Christian church, and we were taught about the oneness of God, not just the concept of monotheism, but the concept of the unification of aspects, such as personifications, personages, and personalities under one force that was so vast and so great in determination that the expression of that force was multifaceted. And so the need to emphasize to us that we were a triune man, so that it would match this image of a Trinitarian concept of God, it just never sat right with me, right? And that's just me. Because
Oh no, I would just like to add there. I don't agree with the perspective that they presented, but I just wanted to add on brain, stomach, lower nature, all brains. There, your physical, mental brain at the top of your head. Your stomach is considered a brain that has its neural pathways and everything as well, and so does your lower nature. So if you wanted to look for triune God within yourself, you have three brains.
yeah, I mean, and even when you're dealing with the concept of three, three was the number of manifestation, right? But we were also taught that that which was opposing in force and nature to God was antichrist, right? Or the antithesis of Christ-like. And the antithesis would dictate in the art of mimicry that everything that one kingdom or one foundational understanding would present in one light, the opposing force and the opposing kingdom would do the similar thing, but it would represent the reversal of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just what they did with the languages.
Correct. So, not to go
Mm-hmm.
too far down that road, we're gonna go and hop to the next aspect of Merkaba, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
some people refer to as the light body. Also, it is translates, I believe, in Hebrew as the wheel. Wheel, right? Some say wheel of ascension, but let's see here.
And your Merkaba does have a rotation, and a lot of the explanations that are given for Merkaba, they have a spin. So it's interesting that wheel would be one of them, when in fact they do have a spin or a rotation.
Yeah, the word I was trying to remember was chariot. So on the wheels on the chariot, or the purpose of a chariot to carry someone or something from one place to another. Absolutely. So Merkaba, Merka and Ba. And what's your understanding of Mer? I mean, does it mean light or does it mean water?
Now, see, that's where I don't know. I have connotative linguistic formulas for it, as in mer people, you know what I'm saying, and the water, and then there's more, and I know how they like to take linguistics and change it to something similar and change its meaning to hide its original form. And the only reason I say more and mer in reference to each other is because if they in fact took from indigenous cultures their formulas for Kabbalah, Gematria, Zohar, and everything else, if they indeed did indeed take that from original people, then you know Yeah. Yeah.
So interestingly enough that you went there, right? Another definition, and then we're gonna get it. Hopefully we can get into this hot and heavy for the people. Let's see here. Dead language meaning.
Mm.
An extinct language or dead language is a language with no living native speakers. A dominant language is a dead language that still serves as a symbol of. Yeah. Latin is probably the most
Um,
known dead language. No one speaks it as their everyday language anymore, but they use that language to supplant or to transplant um, within other language systems. Am I correct? Or
yeah, yeah, very much so. They
every modern language contains a portion of Latin, especially when you're speaking in legal terms, right? Like what they call legalese.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And since we're
And
dealing
then
with corpses and corporations, corpuses,
yeah, corporations, dead ink, dead black ink, dead ink. Um,
corporeal
um,
corporeal entities in
and
order.
then for a dead language to be understood easily, a dead language is not producing that energy. It's not producing those levels of control. A dead language would be what takes and utilizes the currency, the energy. It's a charge. It comes with a charge. It doesn't come with a like a. When I say charge, I don't mean like a charge like somebody charging you up. I mean like somebody taking a charge from you. It doesn't have the accumulative effects that you can have an experience from. When you're dealing in dead language, it always benefits somebody else predominantly. You're never the beneficiary in dead language use, communications, and things like that until you make it living again.
How do you make it living again? Check this out, brother. Um, you did a great explanation. But we're not given these things in such a light. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not presented initially. Our foundation and basis in understanding is not steeped in that level of operative understanding. The liturgy, for example, right? We deal with Greek because you mentioned the Etruscans, which is one of the early names for the people that were later misnomered as Greek, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from the Greek liturgia, which is a combination of two other words. People, laos and work, ergon. Literally, a liturgy is a work of the people, or perhaps more helpfully, a public service.
So,
Therefore, it is the most basic. Liturgy refers to the order of a corporate worship service. I'm going to read that one more time. It refers to the order of a corporate worship service.
wait a minute, Jay, one more time for the people who didn't get it.
For the people in the back, I'm going to read it again slowly. It comes from the Greek liturgia, which is a combination of two other words people, laos, and work, ergon. Literally, a liturgy is a work of the people, or perhaps more helpfully, a public service. Therefore, it is at its most basic. Liturgy refers to the order of a corporate worship service. So, how once again could Kaballah be a living language? And a liturgical language, or no, I'm sorry, it said Hebrew. Let me catch myself before I jump on a wagon train that's not even moving that direction. My bad. So what is behind Hebrew? It was Dr. Phil Valentine that pointed out Hebrew coming from, and I don't know that this phonetic breakdown was scholastic in nature or if he was giving his own summation of years of field research, which is possible. But het, meaning light, and to brew, meaning to distill. So to have a distilled light would to deal with an angle of perception, which is what some people perceive angel to actually mean, not a separate entity from another entity, but a point of light or point of view, as we would say.
Yeah,
a way of
and they say
seeing.
angels are messengers. Angels are messengers. So that goes along with what you're saying. They come in to bring messages, and that message becomes the focal point.
Right. Woo. Okay. So all right. So we got into those things. So now we're supposed to get into this for you guys. So the power behind the curtain, the reset, the reconstruction, and the resurrection of the real estates. I think you and I agree are steeped in the language.
Yes. Yeah, most no doubt.
I just want to make sure that I'm not reading too much from my end to a point of agreement, because we don't very often disagree, and even if we do, it's very helpful to both of us in that disagreement to find the points of light that are interconnected, despite the perception possibly being slightly different. Now, the Kaballah, the Cabals, can't forget the Cabals. Ooh. Okay, so a Cabal, I'm just flying off the cuff here because I looked it up earlier and days ago, and over the years, of course. But it seems to generally deal with a secret political clique or faction, right? But there's also a liturgical connection in that, because politics is in the public sphere, and I use the word public sphere for a reason, right? They're in the spectrum of the public audience that is being sought after to captivate their opinion. So you could say separation of church and state, while in fact having set up a corporate body for public works that is actually a religion or a church.
If the left and right hemisphere of the brain produce electricity, then by providing you a focal point that you take on, and you use your imaginative force or the energy of the left and right hemisphere of your brain to think on and develop that particular ideology, have I then stolen your energy?
You've captivated it.
Captivated it, because somebody can make a choice to give it away too.
Correct. So I've been mesmerized.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole purpose of a pulpit, for example, is the same as a rostrum. A podium? To elevate me in your eyesight. And my voice speaks over you, right? And the energy that comes from your voice, it's usually a domed ceiling or rounded edifice somewhere near to where the sound goes up around and behind me and comes back up through me as I continue to speak to you to capture your attention or captivate you as an audience, hold you captive as you give me your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else involved music.
And then 3 times during the service, there may be presented a collection plate with 2. So that's another form of energy collection or charging.
Absolutely. And then bursts of energy in liturgical worship, and then using the difference in terms as
Did you
praise.
say corporate worship?
Corporate worship. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The corporation must receive its worship, its service. Right. The whole thing is about a service. That's why it's called a worship service. It's redundant, but we didn't ever catch it. I'm going to service. What do you mean you're going to service? I'm going to worship service. I'm going to serve within the service. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So usher, deacon, trustee, elder.
So wait, they use their liturgical language as a reason for their servitude. I mean, even to the extent that I've heard the witnesses, I've heard them speak before about how they perceive themselves as slaves.
Oh, you mean Russell's witnesses?
Who is Russell?
Charles Taze Russell. Do you mean the Watchtower Society religion?
Yes,
Oh,
them. Yes, indeed.
indeed.
Yes, indeed. They openly admit that they are slaves. I don't think that they full on realize that there are individuals who run that and fund it to keep that information being promulgated. But I don't know if you've ever noticed that Jehovah Witnesses doors never close to their facilities. They're always able to pay, even though they don't take up offerings and things like that. It's because they're being funded by who they call, not me, their masters.
Can you read this by chance? I know you have a smaller screen in front of you.
Let me see if I can. The term Kaballah originates from the word Kaballah, the Jewish mystical interpretation of the Hebrew Bible. Its sinister use was popularized in a child's history of England by Charles Dickinson.
Dickens.
When it was used as an acronym, Dickens. When it was used as an acronym for the 5 English government ministry during the region of
the reign of King Charles II.
Yeah, so, the reign of King.
So isn't there a fivefold ministry gift spoken of within
New
Testament?
There is indeed
Christian interpretation of what they call the Novum Testamentum, mostly translated under the supervision and hand of Desiderius Erasmus. If you want to look him up, a Swedish priest within the church. But yeah, the term Cabal originates from the word Kaballah, the Jewish mystical interpretation of the Hebrew Bible, and its sinister use was popularized, like you just read, in A Child's History of England by Charles Dickens, when it was used as an acronym for the 5 English government ministers. So when we talk about even administrative process within law, right, we're going back to that liturgical language. We're dealing with a dead form of speech where a living man or woman is interacting with a dead entity or having a seance while claiming to be a child of God. So if you don't think they've got you coming and going, I just can't help you. I don't think anyone else can. But
Jay, I have to touch this. So we're dealing with dead language. We're going into liturgical language, and then we went into political language. Okay, and how they were dead. Well, I hate to do it, but I have to do it. Y'all can look this up. I'm just pointing you in a direction. This is just me talking. So you have the Jesuit who befriended the natives. Okay, you have the Jesuits who befriended the natives. They were accepted by the natives. They were brought into the tribes, and they were taught the lessons by the natives, and they had a respectable relationship with the natives. At the end of their collection of information, they often faced military advancements and overtaking. If then those people lost their lives and their names were given to others, or their names were carried on by their children and intermingled into the culture that overtook them, then when you're using dead language, it could be in order to sustain rulership over land that was taken through nefarious means. And that's what you would be using that dead language to ensure. That's why you would be taking their name into your possession at birth, providing them a social security, becoming ward of the state, all of these things, and along that dead process from religion to politics to liturgical language would all keep the identities of the original holders of a living language a secret.
I mean, or just for just a period of time long enough to decode the language, and then, like it says in the definition of Aramaic, for example, which is Syriac, which is a form of Aramaic, as they call it, right? But who could tell us the difference between Aramaic and Amharic? And why is Amharic still spoken by over 5 million people in Northeast Africa, but we're being told that Aramaic is an archaic and dead language? I mean, is there no connection between? Because I believe Amharic, Amharinia, those terms would deal with a place, right, where people spoke a certain dialect. So, is there a difference between Neo-Aramaic and Syriac, which gave birth to Hebrew and then Arabic? And then, I mean, we could jump around a bit. Why was Yeshua speaking Chaldean, a dialect of Sumerian language, when he performed his miracles, if he was Jewish? Anyway, I mean, this is just the types of things that appear when indigenous people are supplanted and suppressed. Their languages and dialects are also suppressed and forbidden.
Then they use the term universal language in reference to Kaballah, or I use universal language. And I'm giving thought to it. Energy is a perceivable language. And if
Right.
if there's common threads through all of these languages that go back to an original language, I remember them talking about Sanskrit. I think it is Sanskrit. It's either Sanskrit or no, it is Sanskrit.
Yes,
Sanskrit. Yes. Okay. They had a measuring device that they used, and it was called Jenny. It was that they shortened it up by calling it Jenny. So Jenny would read the sounds shape. Like you could put, you know how you've seen it. They put sand on a plate or water on a plate. Then they play the music, and the sand comes together to form a geometrical shape on the thing, depending on the sound that they're playing. Well, when they put the sounds of Sanskrit letters on Jenny, the crazy thing that came out is the same sound that was made for the letter was also the geological shape when Jenny. So if it was ooh, just ooh, when ooh came out, it was a O on the Jenny reader, and it matched the depiction that they were utilizing for Sanskrit. So with these people breaking us up off of a language that had to be more energetic living, and bringing us into liturgical talk, bringing us into, what do they call it, legalese, bringing us into religion and all of this different forms of linguistics. I forget they theology schools tell all the different levels of communication that they have. But if you took us off of a natural based system that was energy based, and you brought us into a dead language, then you would have brought the energy capacity down, and you would have taken us off of a universal linguistic standing. And interestingly enough, there is a time spoken of in the biblical text where Babylon's people were all unified and speaking one language. And then God came and saw that they were going to be like God, which I don't know why you wouldn't want your children to be like you. That always, anyway, so that they were going to be like God. And when he saw that they were going to be like God, he himself came down and broke it up and broke up the language. So if we have these common threads through English, through Spanish, through Italian, through all of these through Aramaic, through Paleo Hebrew and Hebrew, if we have all of these similarities throughout the language, then they must have came from a language base. And the languages that we were handed after this universal language was broken up was so that we didn't understand each other and we couldn't communicate with each other, which brought us to a level more ignorant and less energy. Just an observation because of what we were talking about. It made me think of Babylon and the Tower of Babel. You know what I mean? And we talked about all of these different languages that broke up out of an original language. And we talked about how they're dead and how they remove the knowledge and awareness of our culture and things like that. And they replace them with something else. That's because you can't lie to a person using a universal language, but you can lie like a mug if you write down something that has no energetic value or true meaning except what it was given. I digress.
Oh, brother, listen. I'm just thinking language matrix versus lexicon. And I mean, you deal with matrix, you deal with a mother tongue, right? Mother tongue. We deal with a tongue, which is the first term used to describe language or linguistics, right? Um, it deals with the natural way and order of communicating through speech. Phonetics, right? Remember Hooked on Phonics? Hooked on Phonics worked for me, right? So
Yeah.
as I'm looking through this, like I just gotta share this. As I'm looking through this, the definition of language matrix, it says matrix based language, the world's most natural way to express computational mathematics. Um, so all right. Now here's another interesting aspect. Right up underneath it, the language matrix, instant conversation in Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, and English. Now I want you to see what this says. Conversational Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic in a month, created by a military linguist. Now I'm not trying to advertise for him, so that's all I'm gonna do. So when you're dealing with conquering a society, one of the first things you have to destroy, break down, reconstruct, because we're talking about reset, reconstruction, and resurrection of the real estates, it would start with the language and the understanding.
Grammatica, Jay. Grammatica.
So gematria. Let's deal with gematria. Some people say gematria. I mean, tomato. But let's just look. What is it? Some of you are very familiar with this already, but do you know how to actually use it? Hope you do learn, if not so. But gematria. Gematria, from the Greek word geometria, refers to a process of which numerical values are ascribed to the letters of the Hebrew alphabet or alphabet. What does the Bible say about gematria? That's an interesting question. But let's see. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
According to Kaballah, and two words or phrases share the same number. If two words or phrases share the same number, they are considered to possess some significant connection. Gematria reveals a deeper set of correspondences as seen in the literal text and points to an entire mathematical structure underlying the Torah.
Jay.
Go ahead.
Every holy book has numbers. So we dealt with the Jesuit who went into and then the Jesuit who went into original tribes, and then they come out of the original tribes with the information. Then the military goes in and conquers the area. The people may live, the people may not live. Their language may be deaded and then integrated into the next society, like the Etruscans were integrated into Greek and Roman culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Gematria deals in numbers. So if they stole the information and they had to represent it, then they would utilize the numbers to keep the meanings of what was being said and the locations and, you know, all of the parts that would empower somebody, limited to those who knew the numerical system. So if you had a subject matter, right, and the subject matter was about one part of the aspect of the yourself, okay, and so this was the teachings on the mind, okay, then every scripture with a 1 would be a scripture about the mind. And then if you have another number, 2, and 2 is a description of the heart, then every one pertaining to 2 would be a heart matter. And then if you add different numbers, you say chapter 3. All right, let's go with the heart. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 would be about the heart. Verse 47. It would be how the heart affects the. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm trying to explain it. Let me explain it a simpler way. So, because I know that you have information and I have information, but I want to make sure the audience is grasping what I'm saying. If you numerically represented your tree of life, your Sethroth, if you numerically represented the energetic points on your body, if you numerically represented your sacred energy system, your chakra system, and you numbered it, and you wanted to hide that it was about a person, you can then put it in a book, a holy book, and put numbers next to it. And the numbers, if you don't know them, if you're not an architect, if you're not a grand architect, if you're not a mason, you don't have the measurements, you don't have a compass, you don't have a what's the other thing? You don't have a compass or a measuring form of measurement, a compass or a square. If you don't have your compass or your square, then you do not know what you actually reading, which then goes further to be supported that after the conquering of Egypt and it turned into Egypt, they had 3 different levels of communication that they operated on. They operated on what was common to the people, what was for the king's court, and what was for the religious priest. And this was all determinable by numeric expression. So the Gematria is what the Jews use and the Roman Catholics use, and they used it every time they conquered. So in each other holy books as well, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and all of the places that this conquering went on, they came out with a holy book that was given to the people that was numerically valued.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Because even in phonetics, right? And I'm not picking on you. I'm just pointing something out that our people, we all do it. I do it. You do it. My grandmother does it. My parents have done it and still do it from time to time. You're pronouncing it Gematria now. It's interesting because my subconscious said he's talking about two similar things along the exact same line conceptually, but the pronunciations, he's merging them because they're one and the same aspect of understanding to him. So, like, if I'm wrong, correct me, even though we're live, I don't mind. But tetragrammaton, I just realized you're combining gematria and tetragrammaton word wise, right? But here's the concept. Here's what's wow. Translation of tetragrammaton, right? Now, if you look under the religious context, it says in many English translations of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, the form Lord, written in small capital letters, is used to represent the four Hebrew letters YHWH or Yod He. This is the proper name. That is a lie. The personal name of God, not a title or a pronunciation. It's interesting because in even older linguistic systems, Yahweh literally was the same meaning as Baal, Baal, which meant, or Baal, as some people pronounce it, which just means Lord, a Lord. Interesting, right? Because they would say, who is your Yahweh, meaning who is your Lord? Same thing as who is your Baal, or what God do you pray to? Now, here's interestingly enough, y'all can research that if you don't believe me. The etymon of Graham, spelled also Gramme. It's a noun. It's a metric unit of weight. 1797 from French gramme, Gramme, 18th century. From the late Latin gramma, small weight. From Greek gramma, small weight. A special use of the classical word meaning a letter of the alphabet. That's what That's what I want y'all to focus on. It means a small amount, but it also it represents a letter. It means a letter in the alphabet. English, about 2 years before it was established in France, was a unit in the metric system of the law of 19. Keep that in mind. Primaire. Year 8. 1799. There seems to be no possible objection to adopting the more convenient, shorter form, except that the ME at the end records, added the part at the end, but obviously it's at the end of the word, Gramme in French, but records the unimportant fact that the word came to us through French. Really. Now, French, I'm going to give y'all, French means freed. I'm about to give y'all some game right here. Freed, right? French also means freed. Now, keep that in mind when you're studying your own history in America, because a lot of American history was adapted from a concept that was introduced by the French called transportation, where they use words or pictures to transport your mind from one belief or understanding to another that they want you to have.
Now that is a Kabbalist formula. That's what they do in the Kabbalah. That is a Kabbalist activity.
Shout out to Dan Calloway. Thank you for pointing that out to the public and the people. But that is definitely, as my brother just pointed out, a Kabbalist practice. Now, tetra means four. I don't think I have to prove that to you all. But tetra means four. Gram, obviously, what we're seeking definition-wise and understanding is a letter of the alphabet, because they're telling us it meant the name of God, the proper name of God, whatever that means, YHWH. I mean, not to be sacrilegious in that statement, but come on. When we're saying something means something literal and personal, Yahweh. That's all that is.
I mean, this we can. I mean, we can. Oh no, I was going to touch back on golem, because that golem. A golem is just something that they build with living language, and they keep energizing. It doesn't have to be alive. It doesn't have to have an origin. It doesn't have to have a start. It doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be in existence.
And I posit to you, my brother, while we are alive and direct, that a living language is only a breath, because all other forms of speech are liturgical. Anyhow, you can quote me on that. I don't mind, even if someone find me academically incorrect and show forth the evidence of that. I would love the opportunity. Prove me wrong. Now, Aton or Atan, the name Atan has Hebrew origins, it says. I call cap, derived from the word that means to atone or to make amends. In biblical context, atonement refers to the act of reconciling and preparing one's relationship with the divine or with others after worshiping. Just scroll down a little bit further, and so why I say cap. Aten is also spelled Atan or Aten. Is the ancient Egyptian deity associated with the sun and the sun's disk. The word Aten means sun disk in ancient Egyptian. Aten. Also Atan. So Atanu, also, or Itin, was the focus of Atenism, the religious system formerly established in ancient Egypt by the late 18th dynasty pharaoh Akhenaten. I don't even need to see the rest of it to know, because I've studied it so intensely. Sigmund Freud wrote a very famous book called Moses and Akhenaten, where he proved that Akhenaten and Moses were the same character. Now, whether you want to argue whether or not they were the same entity or person, that is completely another undertaking that you could embark upon. But the worship of Aten, also Aton, becomes Adonai later on. And the people of the Sinai, not Sinai, Sinai Desert and the Sinai Peninsula that were exiled by the priesthood of the Atenites, they took on the same deity after the priests of Amun-Ra expelled Akhenaten, and then later his daughter Nefertari, before they exiled themselves and sailed to a whole nother part of the world, which is a whole nother conversation for a whole nother show.
I was about to take it there. When I heard that, where they was running from. Just so we on this, they was running from a situation that happened with the Harry Barbarian. Are we on the same page?
Yeah, the Habaru.
Okay.
Also,
all right.
Hyksos, Invader, Foreigner, Tamahu. But yeah, they were descendants of converts that were learning the Atenite worship, and they became servants of Adonai in the Sinai Peninsula. Of course, Sinai named after Sin, which is a deity not in action. Even misunderstanding throughout the scriptural references, you would have to get the understanding of the Sumerian story and epic of how Sin came into being and who his mother was and why he was depicted as a waning crescent moon, not the entire whole full moon, as we call it. And all the temples that were built to him, his mother was associated in worship next to him.
And definitely wasn't a circle like the sun disk that was utilized by the natives.
Correct. You had all these different cabals, politically and spiritually.
And some of the cabals so old, Jay.
Symbolism and symbology.
Some of the cabals so old that they in love with them. You know what I mean? They done fell in love with the M's. They done fell in love with the Boule. They done fell in love with the Roman Catholic and all this chill. They done fell in love with these systems.
Absolutely. And they've mastered to a degree They've mastered to a degree controlling the minds and perceptions of people, and that's all that's been needed. But when there's a awakening to the control mechanisms and even the practices and studies of how to activate the mechanisms of control, now you have the rabbit starting to pick up the gun,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the hunter is no longer having fun.
It reminded me of the story of the one story of African creation. There's different ones. There's Ashanti and there's some different ones, but there's one story that said God looked into the water planet, saw his reflection, and fell into the water, and everything then was created by that. That's kind of what they're causing us to do. They put a pyramid on the dollar. They put different symbology that corresponds to our ancient culture and has resonance in our genetics and has resonance in the magnetic field of Earth, and then put their dead language up under it. So we resonate with the initial symbology, and then they give us a script to apply that energy to.
You got me wanting to pull something. Now I got to pull this up.
That's crazy. Them Jesuits is something that I wonder, just out of, for a conversation later, I wonder, did the Jesuits know what they were doing when they went and befriended these tribes and
they were commissioned. This is
oh,
recorded.
they were.
I mean, and if you want to go into the way that the orders are established, right, the characters and the orders that were set up in the Old Testament, for example, the Levitical priesthood, the left-handed priests, right? These people came, if I'm not mistaken, they came before Jacob, right? Right? Before Jacob, pre-Jacob? Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So his sons would have been the tribe, Benjamin being one of them, Levi being another.
Ooh.
Being son of his right hand and the other one being left-handed. So the left-handed priesthood is encoded with meaning. I won't give that away right now. However, it does connect to the Levitical and liturgical priesthood of the Levite and their that was activated to go in and kill the others who stood on the other side and not with their Lord. He said, who is on the Lord's side? The ones that didn't cross over that crevasse that had formed in the ground, if they weren't swallowed by the crevasse after it continued to grow, he sent in the Levites to slit the throats of the continually rebellious folk. So when you look at that, you got to look at rebel meaning resistance in this aspect, and the resistance being the indigenous factions of people who did not want to submit to what they perceived to be a mandate or a dictate of their God or their Lord, which is why
Serapis, not. I mean, I don't want to just say Serapis, but that whole time period, I was reminded of a movie. They talked about the priests at Memphis. They cut out their tongues because they wouldn't teach them the secrets of what it was to be God. So they went to the next priesthood, the next city over. The next city over had heard that they cut out the tongues priests at Memphis, so they gave them the initiatory process to become God. But it's interesting that they got cut out their tongues. You know what I mean? If there was any symbology there, you know what I mean, to linguistics, they were asking how to be God.
So what's the
and
oath?
Then we have. Go ahead.
What's the oath within the lodge? What's the Jesuit oath? Okay, what's the lodge oath first? Let me separate the two so I don't confuse people. to imply that they're both the same, both are taking the same way for the same purpose. But within the lives of what they tell you, if you share any of the secrets that are not permitted
Yeah.
to be shared with the uninitiated, that you would have your tongue removed from your mouth, your heart removed from your chest, and burned in a cauldron. Who burns things in cauldrons? At least the way that we're programmed to think in the society, witches.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a circle? And what is a church? And what is a circle church? And what is a coven? What's the difference? Anyhow, so all of these are oaths, and all of these organizations have binding agreements, right? And one of the chief practices of such things is this word right here. I got a feedback echo. You ready for this, brother?
Yes, indeed. My goodness.
If you don't want to read it, I guess I will.
I can't see it. I can't see. My screen is very small.
That's right. I tried to blow it up. Hopefully, this can get a little larger. I will try to make it a little larger.
Oh no, go ahead. Just let me see if I can.
I want you to be able to read along. You don't have to read it. I'll read it out loud. I appreciate you though.
Okay, I'm with you. I done wind it up. I'm with you.
Okay, you see what word we're dealing with?
Said.
Seance.
Okay.
Now, in 1789, noun to sit or a sitting, a session as of a learned society, originally in French context, from French séance, a sitting from, I don't know how to pronounce that properly, but from soir, I think, soir, to sit, from Latin sedere, to sit, from high root sed, to sit, meaning spiritualistic session in which intercourse is alleged to be held with ghosts of the dead. Proto-Indian, Indo-European root meaning to sit. It might form all or part of, assess, assiduous. These words. Asiento, assise, banshee. Wait a minute. Forgive me. That just got hit.
I want to relate this to something right after you get done, and we're about to go. We're going there because,
bro, Sanskrit. I'm gonna skip down. I want y'all to see this. Don't y'all read the piezoelectric.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Excuse me.
Dodecadron, dissident, insidious, nick. I'm gonna go down. So it might be also the source of Sanskrit. Satat, sat down. Siddhati, sit. Nida. What was that word? Nadi? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Resting place. Nest. And we've talked about the nest. We're going to do that.
We going there. We are about to go there.
Persian hadith. Abode. Greek. Azestai. To sit. Hedra. Seat. Chair. Face of a geometric solid. Latin. Sedere.
What? Face of a geometric solid.
Greek. Azestai. To sit. Hedra, seat, chair, face of a geometric solid. Latin, sedere, to sit, occupy an official seat. We talked about this not too long ago about the seats. Okay, reside, sit still, remain, be fixed or settled, nidus, nest, Old Irish, weed, seat, sitting, net, nest, Welsh, said, seat, Eistead, sitting, nith, nest, Old Church Slavonic, says that.
Wait a minute. Wait, whoa. What did you say?
Old
Did you say old church?
Slavonic. Old church.
I'm done. Yeah, we going all the way there.
Sedeti to sit, sedlo, saddle. Nesdo, nest. Lithuanian, sedeti, to sit. Russian, sad garden. Lithuanian, sodinity, to plant. Gothic, sitan. Oh, Gothic, sitan. Old English, sitan, to sit. Satan? Satanic? Sorry. All right. So that's why people just assume that seance is evil because it involves intercourse with a ghost after you sit down. Anyway, okay, and placed in the seat of power, like if, for example, I don't know, a Theosophical Society member that had the right bloodline decided to go ahead and put a Rothschild in a seat and call it Fraternis Lucis.
If Kim wanted to get babies from Kanye.
Oh, see, no.
Oh no, okay, I quit. I'm okay. All right.
I'm just playing.
So that she could. No, Jay, we got to go here. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish. Have you completed that definition?
I'm good and done. I'm good and done. I don't need to say anymore. I don't think. But
okay, so I've been doing a study lately that revealed that there are geometrical designs that come with DNA, RNA in the different forms that DNA and RNA come in. If you look at them from the top down, because of the amino acids and the composition, they create a wheel of design, a geometrical wheel of design. So the ancestors took me through and revealed that these geometrical designs were placed on cathedral windows. So I go look it up online as the ancestors are speaking to me, and lo and behold, the DNA spiral wheels actually do match perfectly with color inclusion with the cathedral walls. But then the study goes further with the ancestors and they show me the magnetic ley lines of the earth. Then they show me crop circles and they say, now look, the same genetics that are on the cathedral walls are on the crop circles because earth is trying to tell you something. She's trying to tell you where you're supposed to be. She's trying to tell you where your marker is. So then it went even further, talking about these people who stole indigenous culture linguistics and then made the dead linguistics that they hand us. So the geological places the geological places that they took us from that matched our DNA, they took us through the Trail of Tears. They took us from the coastal shorelines. They took us from the holy temples that we had. And they did this process all around the world and then placed themselves there after usually forcing themselves sexually on the culture that they're overtaking. Then they seat themselves. Huh?
Go ahead. I want you to finish your thought on that.
Then they seat themselves inside of these castles and estates after they overtake them and induct this colonization, and then they become the most powerful people on the planet, regardless to their ignorance or unworthiness of their position.
I'm gonna interject with you. associated to you.
They have different windows, and I literally go through them, on a search mission to see if this is something or not. And I mean, I'm talking about exact matches to DNA strands, exact matches. But and then it even went further than that. It got into exact matches for DNA and then resonant frequency also. When you were using making different sounds that correspond to the pipes that they have in these cathedrals, that correspond to the music layout that they orchestrate in the cathedrals. They have a sound resonance that also has the geometrical designs that we see correspondences to them as well. So they have different. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's dope when you can just post your own content, and we've given you all tidbits on this. So I mean, we've been showing you the different ways that the living language is displayed and its correlation to genetics and deoxyribonucleic acid, also known as DNA.
And RNA, DNA, and even I'm not just talking. I'm talking about all of our strands. CNA. Right. There's more than DNA and art. There's more than that. If you ever go look, there's more than that. You know what I mean?
There are more nucleotides, but the common thread, the helix, is the deoxyribonucleic acid, and then the polypeptides and polynucleotides. Right, the different, but the strands. Yeah. So those shapes, okay, those shapes, their correspondence to frequency, light, they all are a language.
Yes, indeed.
Breath is a language. Then the name of God is a breath. That's a spoken language. And even for those of you who like to study the Anunnaki gods, listen to a song by Chris Brown and Jordan Sparks. Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no air. So when you ask the question, why didn't God just destroy the devil? Well, you might want to get some understanding as to what you're calling the devil, whom you're giving the attributes of the devil to, and why he's associated with the very breath that you breathe.
Jay.
The possibility of separating that force from all other life.
And adding on to what you're saying, the only thing that causes us to actually lose our life is the loss of breath. We lose consciousness at the loss of breath. And then even with this, I just want to talk about just a line you made me remember. They said with the guy who got killed by the police, when they took his breath, they had people outside chanting, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe." Then you had Ovid AI, okay? And they dealt with the breath, and they put machines onto people for breathing that they are making discoveries didn't benefit them and may have been fatal.
Yes. So when you deal with that life force in Prana, right? You talked about the what was it, the nadis. And it talks about Prana. Prana, the way that my studies took me in the direction of, it was every particle of light contained within the breath of life. So if you harness the light, particles of light within the breath, you learn how to control and move them, reshape and reform and refashion them. Then you could reprogram the devil that's within. But if you don't know how to do that, you'll always be subject to a law that Paul speaks of in the Christian Bible, And he says, I found that it is a law that when I go to do good, that evil is present there also with me in my members. And so the good that I would to do, I do not, and the evil that I would not to do, that I end up doing. Then he asks the question, oh, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of sin and death? I'm gonna save the rest when I have more time, because there's gotta be a session. There's gotta be a teaching session.
Because I want to tell them right now. I want to show them how to use compound universal linguistics so they can access their power. How to use their imaginations to formulate their own thoughts, and to remind them that it's not childlike to use your imagination. To tell them that their vocal cords, to control what they come out of their mouth, to control how they feel because of the beat and rhythm of the heart and the vibrations of their vocal cords. You want to tell them, be careful how to use your sacred energy exchange, because there's so many different energies that can be formulated by the meeting of nadi or power points all along the body. You want to be careful whose tree of life you bring energy and transfer energy with through your neural pathways and through your skin and different things like that. Because there's one or two ways this goes. Either you're synthetically controlled by pre-existing systems and programs and give up your energy, or you write and formulate your experiences. And when you write and formulate your experiences, that's when you'll return to a state that's natural. That's when you'll return to the linguistics that are universal, because it'll be more about energy than the programming or the results of programming. When it'll be more about something real than something you've been taught to invest your energy in. Instead of investing your energy there and wasting your energy and finding yourself back in this system, should we touch on the blood, or are we going to leave that alone? Blood transmission?
I mean, the blood contains the light, and the light is the life of men. I mean, they admit that within the scripture of the Hebrew Bible text, right? So yeah, we can get into that, but I also don't want to forget. We kind of went into what the power behind the curtain is. Of course, it's Kabbalistical practice.
The power of what did their voice went? Your power of what? No.
The power behind the curtain we kind of touched on, the use of Kabbalistical principles to control perception and our perception controlling the reality. The reset that we've heard so many people predicting, calling out, the Reconstruction that seems to happen at the end of every era, every dominant era, whether it be an industrial era or a military, what I'm trying to, war dominated,
a false flag for attention.
Yeah, because like we got to tie into the resurrection of the real estates, right? Because every nation has states, or some nations are nation states, but like we've mentioned what those really are, and it ties into the blood.
Yes, very much, very much. I just want to say, when you the part of the burial process, they remove your blood from your body before they put you in the ground. And then they put other fluids in place of it. And then those fluids that they replace it with are destructive to any remaining blood. Like if you had any remaining blood left, when they put these other fluids in, your blood is destroyed completely. And then they put you in the ground, and they don't put you in the ground before then. It was interesting to note that within the biblical text is spoken of two brothers, Cain and Abel. One brother killed the other brother, and the way that God knew that this murder had occurred was because the blood cried out to him from the ground. So when we talk about going back to your estates, we talked about your genetic resonances that may match so much so that the earth may actually be creating signs for you to return home. And old architectural designs that were pre-takeover had resonances in their windows that were shaped and formulated to something that matches your DNA. That's you returning home. But how do I
While you paused, can I say this? If I was teaching the Sunday school course, I would ask the children at this point which brother was good and which brother was evil, and why. Did you ever come to that question? I don't mean to go off base at all, but it always seemed to me.
What you talking about? The sons of the morning, Jesus and Lucifer? I mean, and Satan. Excuse me, Jesus and Satan, them brothers. Or you was talking about?
I wasn't going there. I meant Cain and Abel, right?
Oh, sorry about that, bro. My bad. What you saying now? My bad.
Did it say that Cain had any dialogue with a serpent or an evil fallen angel? So what made him just decide to kill his brother? Because God wouldn't accept his sacrifice, right? I just used to wonder that. I don't any longer, but this is an interesting question. It seems to progress to because there was no influence. It was just a natural reaction that led you to be like, forget this dude. He gets everything. He's the favorite. He gets attention. All his prayers get answered. You know, and plunk him. And then his blood cries out.
He was the one that got killed was more connected to nature. He provided a fruit offering and an herb offering, and that's what was accepted. Correct? And or was it the stew? It wasn't the stew, or was it the stew? I forget which one it was, but I remember that the one had a close relationship to nature.
So what happened to that God is what I'm saying, because later on that God wanted burnt offerings and turtle doves and boiling oxen, and I just always wonder what happened. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no worries. So just in the returning back to the estate part, back to the estate. Sometimes we feel drawn to certain places. Everybody think the beach is the best place in the world. When you go on vacation, 70 to 80% of the time you're going on vacation to a coastal shoreline. You know what I mean? That's where everybody want to go. They want to hit North Carolina. They want to hit Florida. You know what I mean? They want to hit New York. You know what I'm saying? Want to go to the Chicago, Detroit. These are the main hubs of energy. You know what I mean? This is where the main things are going on. You know what I mean? You get when your energy is connected back to that system, your blood can actually receive information from those locations. This is why you were moved from them. In the Trail of Tears and many other indigenous tribes were moved from the locations where they were because it put them off sync with their genetic development. If the same genetic development is in your body, is in the cathedral windows, is in Earth itself, then to move you from a location where you had been developing magnetically and with nature to another location would stifle or stifle your growth or what do you call that when it slows down? Step down your energetic value. Huh?
Stifle or stunt growth.
Yeah. Stifle or stunt your growth.
So returning, these aliens that are behind this thing, we taught them that. We taught them that about ourselves. They were that observant.
Every religion is alien.
Is it?
I mean, by definition, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. The main one. Let's just go with the main one. We let us create them in our likeness and image. Who are they? They are Elohim. Elohim, masculine and feminine. They are masculine and feminine beings that use their genetic information to create man with compound genetic formulas that included their genomes. If that is not an alien story, I don't know what is. The Enuma Elish just straight up calls them Anunnaki and gives their name and his story and everything like that, and then says that the religions of Egypt and everywhere else were formulated around the worship of them. So, and then I'm not knocking
the worship of the Anunnaki or the Igigi.
The slaves,
the Igigi. I mean, every second generation is slave to the first generation. And by that, I don't mean like what we've been given the concept of forced into servitude. It's just by nature, if you want to learn from them, you're going to assist them. You'll be like the apprentice. You'll be the go and get it, the go step and fetch it. You'll be the hey boy, go in that room and turn that knob.
You'll be the servant.
In order to become the master, one must always first be the servant.
Yeah, and worship.
Serve.
There was a gene given to you. There was a gene given to you to make sure that when you were presenting these oscillonic vibrations that provide energetic value, and you use your vocal cords that play to the waters of your body and change your molecular structure, there was a code placed in your genetic so that when you did that towards certain entities, that genetic frequency or activation occurred, and you would start to release very good resonances that would bring healing and other things to the body and atmosphere around you. Like songs you didn't know that you knew, like new songs would come out at the point of the DNA activation of that particular coding. But who put the code there? That's another interesting.
I don't know. They ripped mine.
No, you cut it off. You remix that, man. No, and then that you do remix it, because I'm just knowing you. I've heard you listen to music and reformulate it into something else. You know what I'm saying? It's the same. It's the same genetic marker. It's just that you've learned how to utilize it to the benefit of yourself, your communication, your conveyance of a message. You know what I'm saying? Instead of it being utilized to further a programmed response.
I also remember that it was transported aboard a warship, and that every connection is referred to as some sort of relationship, ensignship, except when they want to pull the wool over your eyes by calling it a hood, like fatherhood or parenthood or motherhood. Why isn't it mothership? Why is it? I mean, you got friendship and relationship. Anyway, just a thought. Topical otherwise, but the results aren't very funny, and it's mainly used in the dead zone of language that we call ports.
And then the loss is not in paper money. That's dead. If you put an electric meter up to money, then you're not going to get anything coming back. That's the symbology that's used to draw you into a specific set of actions that are outside of your natural actions. For instance, you have a circadian rhythm, but they give you a calendar and tell you to eat 3 square meals a day. That doesn't go along with your that doesn't go along with your circadian rhythm. So why would they tell you to do that?
Well, because it puts you in a feeling of indebtedness, right? The calendar, you and I have talked about this. The calendar is not what people think it is. It is not a instrument by which you keep track of days, hours, years, or months. A calendar is a schedule of fees. It's when your next bill is due, Nickel.
Mm-hmm.
Your bill due, Knuckle. What you mean my bill due? Your bill due date. And then you look at it, you're like, well, I haven't had service since the date prior the previous moon cycle. So what are you doing? Oh, I'm charging you energetically. I'm disturbing you. It's designed to
That's
do that. You feel unsettled until this matter is attended to. And it's not.
and just for people who think that we've gone off into crazy talking about the calendar in that way. I just want you to know that with a living language, you can accumulate energy, which gives you different levels of experience. So I'll give it to you in a way that you can understand easier. Okay. So in the ocean, you have the deep parts of the ocean, and then you have the shallow parts of the ocean. The creatures that exist in the deep part of the ocean do not live in the shallow part of the ocean. They have different skin densities, different shapes, different colors. Some of them in the deep are bioluminescent, and the ones up top need to feed from the sun in order to get their light. So it is the same for the way that we experience. Everything that we experience is based on our perception of energy. So if our energy is of elevated because we use a living language, then it's a different experience than it would be if we were using a dead language and being further disempowered. Then we would go into the more dense layers where the light would be coming from us and not from around us. But as we go into our own, then the light is being projected from outside of us and we can use it to go into more fluid experiences. You know what I mean? But that's again talking about the living language and talking about how time and the calendar that they gave you is something for you to energize and to build and to make something. Just like you do with your signature, just like you do with your vocal cords, just like you do with your heart, just like you do with your mind when speaking a living language consciously or unconsciously. It still has the same effect.
Absolutely. It's the reason why they do certain political actions or pass certain political laws, legislate certain acts on certain dates. It all corresponds with this schedule of fees, which it deals with a schedule of when your energy is most primed to be harvested and put to the best use in their best interest. Uh, you hear what I said?
That the energy is being taken and put into their use.
Yeah, for their best, however, it can be used in their best interest, because
Right.
they view themselves as having the right to rule, and just like within the document of the what is it, the preamble to the Constitution, governments are instituted by men and derive their best powers by the consent of the governed. So
Right.
then,
That's exactly.
so
Mm-hmm.
then, what happens when that consent is who's designated to notice or give notice? To whom do they give notice? And so people just got to be really careful. Like, you cannot over idealize, conceptualize, or internalize meanings and not look at what's being suggested on a universal level. Tell you something happened on January the 26th. the other side of that political aisle will tell you something nefarious took place. 4 years prior on January 5th, or or November 5th.
I mean,
It's like,
even the holidays they have you celebrate, the movies that they keep rewriting and structuring for your vision. You know what I mean? They're utilizing all of those to harness energy from your mind, from your emotions, from your imagination, all of these places that produce energy on a Kabbalistic level. I'm not talking, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying none of the other things are going on, but I'm saying from a Kabbalistic level, by you giving focus in that way, there's an energy harnessing going on that provides them the ability to control and remain in power, because ultimately all it takes is your awareness to change it. But I mean, I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole other thing. But
yeah, we will though, because what do they say? Acquiescence is consent. Silence is consent. So sometimes your non-reaction or non-response is the key to the contract being implemented and intact. He said, "Well, I didn't agree to that. You didn't speak up when it came time to say, we're not doing that at all. That's not what this is, and it never will be."
right.
So yeah, like you said, the blood, light, the light, and the powers in the blood, the transmission of blood from generation or gene pool within the line age, gene pool within the line age, the line determining the rank of the blood. I don't even want to use the word hierarchy, but within the big bro ship, but in the hierarchy of what line came first. Like, preference could be deferred. Just because I have preference doesn't mean I can't defer to T because I know he needs it better, or he would be better at it at this time. This is what's necessary. It's not going to negate what I got. It's like, hey, I can defer total control of that at this moment, and he and I can have a silent agreement that we're both going to put our heads together. But his name, his face be out to the people because maybe they like me. Maybe I did something that caused damage, and I'm still seeking forgiveness fully. Some have forgiven, some haven't. There's various reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's all I wanted to say on that. Like, the estates are real property. What comes from
and then that's what I want them. I really would like to convey, and I'm going to try my best to make it as short and sweet as I can. Everything that you have available to you found its origin in ancient designs that are better than anything you have. Once that really sinks in, once what I just said to you sinks in, then you'll come into the realization that when you go home, or when you go back to that original resonance, or when you go back to where your great 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 grandmother was from, you know what I mean? When you go back to that, when you follow that matriarchal line to wherever it may lead you, or you follow your own inner guidance system to wherever it may lead you, that right there is enough to produce power on its own. But when you take back the other categories, like the places in your heart space and in your mental space that have been overtaken by programs, when you start to do warfare in the mind, when you start to do shadow work, things that have stained in the darkness, things that have happened in the darkness, and you begin to clear up those things so you don't have trigger responses and things like that, and you control that inner space, outer space. When you control that inner space, when you control those different levels of expression, man, you can have whatever it is that you want, especially when you're in a location that agrees with you. This is when you have Native Americans praying over the soil and it's producing 3 crops. This is where you have the explanation that you gave me of a deer walking up to these people and offering itself to the Native American when they were hungry for the sake of the continuance of their life. This is where those type of connections, the mycelium network, the root system, and all of the information contained in those systems, the water, the literal water, and all of the information that's contained in the memory of water. All of those things have the ability to do you better than any of the systems that have been mimicked and handed to you to steal your energy. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. So I think we just about covered everything to the point.
Yeah.
Of course, okay. So with Reconstruction, man, Kabbalistically speaking, we're talking about the superimposition, like we spoke of, the superimposition of living language that's been replaced with dead forms of speech in order to sound familiar, but completely reconstruct your idea of and perception of what is real and what is possible and what is impossible in order for you to remain in a distracted state of being and not able to act or react to what you think is being thrown at you. And it is, in a way, in a sense, directed at you intentionally. So that you never, stand still and face what you're supposed to face to regain or recapture the essence of you, which is they are actively imitating and projecting. So,
I mean, and they're doing that because they could lose everything: the houses, the cathedrals, the temples in the woods, that the pyramids in the woods all throughout America that they haven't been able to research or get into because it's not for them. You know what I'm saying? All of the, they stand to lose all of that upon you discovering that it's yours genetically. You know what I'm saying? They stand to lose it at that point. And then if you use your living language, they stand to lose everything without you touching them. You know what I'm saying? Well, you don't got to touch nobody. You can do that from your house, from your living room. But yeah.
Or from the juke joint.
Right.
We I want to do a reaction, but we didn't add that to today's. But yeah, check out the movie center support Black people, y'all. Not just because he's quote unquote so-called black man, but he's a talented young man and he's put a lot of work in making films that are both educational and enlightening and entertaining. Check out Center.
Watch out for those vampires.
Yeah, those energy vampires for sure. The bloodsuckers of the poor do. But poverty is a mindset which is rooted in a breath of energy, a spirit, and a lot of us are on our way to reflection. know what I'm saying? But that movie,
Whew.
we don't have enough time for me to even start. We will have to come back at it. In fact, I'd like to watch it a couple of more times. I still haven't heard anybody touching on the things that I saw. So everybody has layers of perception, and someone might say it within the next couple of days. And I'm like, but it's okay because I observed it. I saw what I saw, and it's a definite factor. It was planned. It was some intentional stuff. I'm shocked at a lot of the interpretations I've heard haven't. And I know he's gonna notice some of those type of things as well. Because I was fascinated with certain things. We all have preferences. Those preferences can become a bit of a prejudicial in interpretation. I mean, it's always good to take.
But what do you say? There's 360 different perspectives to any one object, and that's only at one angle. So in order to have a complete view, you would have to have all 360 perspectives to be able to make a composite of the entire object from that angle.
Yes, indeed. Like, share, subscribe. Check out the site Black Sun Shaman, www.blacksunshaman.com. For all your parasite cleansing, your detoxing of heavy metals, your nutrient supplement, your weight loss, your gain as far as protein intake, muscle building, whatever you need, healing, fasting,
even energy protection. Your energy field. Yeah.
Energy protection, y'all. Absolutely protect your energy. It is sacred. I'm the J to the Y, Blue 5. This is the Black Sun Shaman, also known as Hopi.
Yes, indeed.
God. In the valley. Peace, y'all. Thanks for showing up. Like, share, and subscribe, man. Help us grow. Comment, etc., etc. Love y'all.
Indeed. Peace. Peace.